And welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, episode 33. I'm your co-host, Chris. I'm the philosophy professor and the glum Steelers fan in the group.
And I'm Ajay. I'm the psychiatrist and the more cheerful Chiefs fan in the group. uh, Thank you all for following along here on the YouTube channel. If you're downloading the podcast, wherever it is you download podcasts, or if you're following along on social media at STCF715 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. This week, our comment of the week comes again from YouTube. It is from at Mike Morgan 5015, and it's some further gauntlet explanation clarification. Mike Morgan giving us some added kind of perspective of the usage of the word. He says, gauntlet is used in a lot of ways. Running the gauntlet is used in military and naval terms when a mission or a sub, ship, or fleet has to pass through a heavily defended stretch to accomplish its mission or reach its destination. It's used in sports as well. A drill we ran both in high school football and Army basic training was used to acclimate the player or soldier to receiving contact and driving through it, while teammates or fellow soldiers formed two lines which the player or soldier had to pass through while getting hit from both sides. It wasn't usually brutal contact, but firm. In military terms, a special ops boat going up and down a river in hostile territory getting fired on from both sides would be running a gauntlet. So that is your comment of the week. We appreciate the further gauntlet clarification.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, only we touched on the running the gauntlet expression, which I guess I think I have heard of before. Um, but I feel like I'm at the phase of my life where so many things that sound vaguely familiar, but I could be blending that with something else and actually having heard of the other thing. But regardless, yes, running the gauntlet. With the Steelers did the opposite of running the gauntlet in this uh, three-game stretch here, which is itself a gauntlet.
And I feel
But
like some
yeah,
teams threw down the gauntlet and maybe the Steelers didn't pick up the
we
gauntlet.
picked it up and got jousted the heck out of the arena or wherever you joust uh, field. Yeah. Yeah. So should we get into the, well, so we have 2 weeks, I think, to really recap, right? We can do the prior games and then the Christmas Day game. But maybe we should just do the Christmas. I don't know what you think. Christmas Day game first, because that's the highlight here.
Yeah, let's do that, and I'm sure we'll get tangentially onto discussion of the prior games.
Yeah, that sounds good. Um, so do you want to go with the happy thoughts first, which are probably your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, even globally, stepping back from this game, like it's been a weird journey to get there, but this is about as positively as a Chiefs fan could have expected this season to have gone to this point. Like we've clinched the one seed. We essentially won't be playing starters for 2 full weeks. Uh, I mean, everyone would have signed up for this at this point. And I know there were times when the team wasn't looking that great and things weren't looking that good, but especially like I really feel like the team played well the last 2 weeks. They're kind of building for the playoffs. According to Aaron Schatz, I think the DVOA of the Chiefs DVOA in the 3 weeks prior to this were their like third, fourth, and fifth best performances of the year. And this one was, I think, better than the 3 weeks prior. So it's been good. One cannot complain at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember earlier this season when the Chiefs were having these like kind of middling games and they kept coming out on top that like I was thinking, when they play the Steelers, they'll put everything together at that point. It's just like how it's going to happen. And then we got closer and we did like we made unofficial, I guess official predictions just via text beforehand. And I was more optimistic at that point. I said I think my prediction was a last second Chiefs win. And then it went it went south quickly, I think, fairly clearly. Yeah, so this was what I had worried about earlier in the season. Just that, they put everything together and we look like crap, uh, which is what happened. I think the flip side of that from the Steelers fans' perspective is it's been a bad 3 weeks, and there's a sort of a choice about how you view the team at this point, I think. You know, do you think that, we got some injuries at a bad time and we had this brutal 3 game stretch here, including 2 away games at Philadelphia and Baltimore before that, 4-day turnaround to play the Chiefs on Christmas. Even though that was at home, you think that would have given us a boost and it did not. Um, but if you just like look at our performance in those 3 games, I think arguably it just got worse each time, right? So I think we probably looked the best against Philadelphia. Score and stats might not reflect that, but that was one where it felt like a kind of, again, like a kind of narrative game where it's like, change a few things and a few key moments and maybe it goes differently. Baltimore felt like by the end of that they kind of, they were the better team definitely. And the Chiefs by the second quarter it was pretty clear they were the better team. So yeah, I don't. So again, the 2 ways we can read this is, yeah, maybe we just got injuries and had a bad timing on the toughest stretch of our schedule. Um, uh, but the other way to view this, which is the way I'm inclined to, is just that we're not that good and we overachieved to get to this point, and now you can see all of our flaws sort of piling up. But I don't know. We can get into that, but I think you often have a it's not clear sort of where the evidence points. I think at some point whether you're an optimist or a pessimist is going to figure into how you interpret the team. And I think my pessimistic view is bleeding into my interpretation. But anyway, um, I maybe back to the Chiefs for now because there's more fun stuff there. I mean, Mahomes, I thought looked great in this. He was super sharp. I mean, you can probably tell better than me whether this was his best game in a while, but he looked very, he was on, right? And hitting those quick, actually, he was hitting every kind of pass you would want to hit, basically.
Yeah, he was definitely very sharp. I think that his quality of play was has been this level for a little while. It's just that he got more support from the offensive line. It was actually one of the things that per next gen stats, this was the worst pressure rate the Steelers got all year. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
17.9% pressure rate on passing plays. And it's the third lowest one that Mahomes experienced this year. So I just feel like I mean, which is crazy to me, but somehow, I mean, it's why, and we'll see going forward, but it's why all year I've just been like, let's just wait until the end of the year, Chiefs fans. Let's just, like, somehow they just start putting, they throw Joe Tooney at left tackle, they bring in Mike Caliendo, and then the line is playing well all of a
Yeah,
sudden in
it's
the last
fine.
meaningful
Yeah,
game of the regular season, like
yeah,
against a good pass rush. Like TJ Watt had zero pressures for the first time since like week 7 of 2023. Like, I I don't know what to say. Like, it's why like early in the year you just can't fret too much about the Chiefs. That doesn't mean that it's not bad when things don't look good, but it's just like just wait. Let's see, And
yeah,
somehow it all came together, and I think that really helped Mahomes. He was getting the ball out quick. He was seeing the coverage really well. Able guys were coming open. It was like he wasn't having to hold the ball because I think one thing that people kind of misconstrue a little bit is it's like it's not just that people get the ball out quickly because of play design. That's part of it, but also guys have to be open. The quarterback has to identify what's happening quickly. Like it all has to come together. It's not like you can just be like, all right, this week we're going to get the ball out in 2.3 seconds and it'll happen.
right,
Like
right.
it's not just the plays you call. Like they have to work, and guys have to get open and the quarterback has to be able to ID things quickly. And that all just came together and it was very nice to see.
Yeah, uh, it did seem like we couldn't get pressure, and partly that was just because the ball was getting out quickly, guys were open quickly, and Mahomes was seeing them. Um, and I got to say, your offense is it looks fun. Like they're like the slot shot to was that to Hollywood Brown it was near the end zone. A quick, just like a vertical shot out of the slot. I thought was like that wasn't like that used to be a piece of our offense. We haven't done that in years, but that like I love your play design. And it's something to be. We should take a look at that and try to do some of those things. But yeah, so our pass rush didn't do anything. Uh, Gave Mahomes a ton of time, but I feel like he often needed it. Um, Kelsey had a good game. He and Mahomes that were like their usual dynamic duo kind of. Um,
Well, and that is, you know how it's funny because I feel like I've been talking all year on this podcast about how Kelsey's not a yards after the catch guy, and he had 54 yards after the catch in
yeah,
this game.
and there were
But
a couple
I
of times
think,
where we just like left the middle like wide, like I don't know. Where
yeah,
the defense is on the decline in a number of ways, I guess, but we gave him a
it's
lot of room to run.
yes, and I will say that. So this year, going through next gen stats, this year is the first year of Kelsey's career where he has a cumulative negative yards after catch over expectation. Uh, Last year he was like at 14 or something positive, but
Hmm.
usually like in his heyday he was in like the 150 range. Now he's at negative 42 this year. He had 54 yards after the catch over against the Steelers. Any guess as to what his yards after the catch over expectation was in this game?
I mean, there were so many wide open things. It couldn't have been maybe like 10 or something.
It was -8. He
Negative
could,
eight.
he could have even gotten more. And
Yeah.
that's the third lowest number that Kelsey's had this year. So there was a lot of room to roam in the middle.
Yeah. There were a couple plays where it was just like there was no, like the whole team went out basically, and there was the middle of the Kelsey was just sitting there. And then a couple plays where he just like sort of did a pivot, and then there was no one on once he pivoted. So, um, yeah, that's not surprising, I guess. I think our defense is having, they're like, we had Deshaun Elliott back in this one, and he was after the game. It sounds like there's some internal strife in the defense, calling out people for people can't be getting wide open. Well, that's probably true, but I'm not sure why. It sounded. I got the impression that a couple people on the defense thought some one particular person was sort of at fault, but they wouldn't name them. So I'd be curious to know. Maybe it's clearer from the film breakdown, or maybe it'll come out this week. Who's really screwing things up? Maybe it'll be on Hard Knocks. Um, but is Hard Knocks over now? Actually, maybe we don't get any more of that. Oh, whatever. Um, yeah. So we got a lot of problems. Uh, uh, oh, but on Kelsey, I wanted to ask if you appreciated the dunk between the goalposts on in the yeah. I mean that's I take it he was what's the phrase, gesturing to Gonzalez at that point.
Oh yeah, I think for sure. And they like so beforehand, Tony Gonzalez had said a couple weeks ago that if Kelsey dunked it to celebrate the touchdown, he would pay Kelsey's fine. Uh,
Oh,
and
nice.
after the game, Kelsey reminded him of that, and Gonzalez said, "Yeah, I will. Like, I'll do it." So,
That's awesome. Um, well, I regret that it had to happen against the Steelers, so I couldn't enjoy it quite as much as I would have otherwise. But yeah. What else? Do you want to talk about what else went right for the Chiefs in this one before we get into what went wrong for the Steelers?
yeah, I think the other thing that was good to see, well, a couple of things. One was just that we were pushing the ball into intermediate areas a little bit more, like behind it wasn't just all underneath game. We had one successful deep shot down the right side to Justin Watson. Uh, that was nice to see the passing game like moving a little farther down the field and doing so successfully because things have been very short this year for the most part. I think the defensive line played really well, but I think that was a little bit more in concert with the secondary. I would say a lot of those sacks were kind of 50-50 sacks where they weren't like immediate wins, but they also weren't like pure coverage sacks. It was kind of Russell Wilson couldn't get his first read, was maybe getting over to the second read and looking and then getting sacked. And so that was good to see as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The flip side of that is that it did feel like, it's hard to know exactly what the problem was, but we were getting, we were fairly quick pressure, allowing fairly quick pressure routinely. And it often seemed like it was from the left side. Dan Moore didn't have a great game, at least by the eye test. But again, it was hard to tell. Maybe we anticipated that, and then Russ was not diagnosing the play quickly, or was not. The first read wasn't open, and at that point, the pocket's already collapsing. So again, it's like the kind of thing that's hard to know, but what's easy to know at least is that we were not getting protection for as long as you would want to get protection, right? He didn't have time to get comfortable back there. I think he ended, was it 5 sacks or was it six
Yeah,
by the end of that?
5 6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good defensive performance. Um, yeah. So yeah. I mean, I guess everything that went well for you is stuff that went bad for us. um, but yeah, it did seem, you know, we were not in rhythm in the passing game. Pickens not running a route that led to a pick in the end zone. That was a nice one.
yeah.
That was a, you know, you love to see it.
Well,
But
and the thing that's craziest about that is that it was like a couple plays after he made a great like he played that ball against Trent McDuffie about as well. Like McDuffie was all over him in coverage. Pickens like doesn't show his hands until really late that he's going to catch that ball. Like it was just like textbook. Like it was like this was almost indefensible. Honestly, it
mhm.
may be indefensible. It was perfect. And then like 3 plays later, he just like gets pressed and is like, "Nah, I'll just pull off this route," and leads to an interception. Like that's got to be the most
Yeah,
frustrating guy to have on your team.
yeah. When I first saw the play, it was like, why in the world did he throw that? Because it was
Yeah,
into like maybe quadruple coverage, or at least triple coverage. And then it was clear that, well, the safety didn't have anything to do because Pickens didn't run. uh, so you would have thought I think the safety would probably have, I mean, they broke this down in the broadcast, right? But the safety would have cheated over that way, and didn't have anything to do. So just got in the way.
well,
Yeah.
to kind of go off tangentially, I thought the broadcast did a pretty good job, like pointing stuff like that out. I
Mhm.
mean, honestly, Netflix. I thought so. This was apparently the CBS production crew, but they did better than they do on CBS. I feel like like the
Yeah.
replays looked really good. They were getting to replays nicely to explain. They explained the flag unworthy for excessive celebration because like when I watched it, I was like, "What the heck was
Yeah.
that?"
Yeah.
And then they explained the Pickens contribution to the Reed interception. The only thing that was kind of annoying to me and to I think Chiefs fans in general was that JJ Watt seemed very pro TJ Watt on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Like maybe don't
Yeah.
have like a player's brother in the booth.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with JJ Watt as an announcer, but maybe not like when his brother's playing.
Yeah. I think he tried to address this pregame, but I can't remember what he said, but he said basically I'm not gonna try to to not be biased. I think is what, and yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, it was fine with me, but uh, there wasn't a lot to be, super excited about from TJ Watt's performance anyway. So um, yeah, what? I mean, it feels to me like um, this this 3 week stretch or 3 game stretch, really like 1.5 week stretch, has really like Wilson is pressing in ways that I don't think he was earlier this year. Uh, I don't know so much against the Eagles whether that was apparent, but certainly in the last 2 games, like the fumble against the Ravens when he was just like, "I'm getting into the end zone,"
Oh man.
no, you're not. uh, the way he changes direction, it's like there was no need to change direction at that
Yeah.
point. And he does it so slowly and he telegraphs it so much that like everyone knew it was happening and it made it very easy to just hit him and then he fumbled. Um, but like I would probably change direction about that quickly. um, so I think he needs to realize that. Although he did have some like a few good runs in this one.
Yeah.
So that there's something there, but he needs to learn, I think, when to, you're not 20, you're not 25 anymore, right? You're 36 now, I think that's what he is. So, you know, run it a little bit, but don't get greedy. I think he got greedy. I mean, the pick, I guess I wouldn't put on him, unless there was, I don't, maybe he should have seen that, the safety was not going left and then not thrown it. But I think that's really on Pickens, probably.
Yeah, and I'll have to see on the film like the exact timing of when he threw that ball, but also like when you're a quarterback and you identify the play and you know what you're running, some of it is just trusting that what you expect to happen happens. Like you can't
Yeah,
see everything. I think
yeah,
this is one thing that like fans like when he's down there on the field looking at whether like he's looking at Fryermuth whether he's going to clear the underneath defender like in his brain, he's like, I don't have to worry about that safety because Pickens is over there. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's a lot to ask someone to like. I really don't think quarterbacks are checking all that many things. I think one of the reasons why Mahomes is so effective is because he has a good understanding of what the defense is doing and what his offense is doing. And so you don't have to look at everything. You look at what you're looking for and you can put the rest of the puzzle together based on how you know the play is supposed to develop and what the defense's responsibilities are. And so, but I am curious in general just to see like where was the safety when he released the ball? Like what was
yeah,
happening at that point? I'll have to
yeah.
check on that.
I since it was to his, I wonder if he was trying to hold. Oh, I guess this is just pure speculation, but I wonder if he was trying to hold the other safety, looking to the other side of the field, and therefore not seeing that Pickens wasn't running. But who knows? He has done that a couple of times on those seam shots. I think tried to hold the safety and then just ripped it over, and it's worked a lot, but doesn't work in specific contexts when your receiver doesn't run the route. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm overstating the case about Wilson, but it did feel like that was that was one of my takeaways that he's pressing more than he should be, and maybe it's because he's feeling like they're up against really good opponents and he needs to make more plays than he was making, and no one else was making them. Um, but whatever it is it felt like his play has been worse the last 3 weeks. Although maybe it's just those a couple. Yeah, he also had a pick against the Ravens, right? If I don't, it's sort of
Yeah, he
blending
threw
together
it
now.
behind Michael Pruitt
Yeah.
and it
Oh,
was
that was
taken
pick
back.
six. Yeah,
That was
that was not
not
a
a
good
good,
throw. That
no.
was no. He was trying to make. I don't know what he was trying to do. Trying to make
Yeah,
something happen, and
that
no, he can't be
that
36 and in the NFL for that long and making that throw.
right. That's exactly what my takeaway was from the Ravens game, honestly, was that like you have a veteran quarterback so they don't lose you the game on the two turnovers he had. Like
Yeah,
those are Justin Fields plays, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff where you would bring up the up and comer with potential and be like, "Okay, well, we're going to have growing pains." Like you're 36, you can't be like running headlong into a safety. Like I literally like you've done everything you're supposed to do. Just get down and then let's go score a touchdown. Like, and the throw to Michael Pruitt. I mean, you just can't. You can't throw it. The one place you can't throw an out route is you can't throw it short and you can't throw it behind him. Like you
it
can't
was
do that.
it was like exactly to the defender. It was
Yeah.
not even to the receiver.
See,
Yeah,
that was the
yeah,
disappointing thing to me because I feel like that Ravens game was close. Like I feel like it was there, and Pickens, Wilson. Like I feel like he lost that game with those plays. Like that, you
yeah.
just can't.
I do think, yeah, he clearly is like that loss was on him, despite the fact that you know other things didn't go right. But I think it's clear that like those two big errors were the reason we lost that game. Which is not to say that we wouldn't have lost it without those errors. We might well have,
Right,
but it would have been
but
more interesting.
it guaranteed a loss.
Yeah,
Those
that's
errors, you
right.
know.
Um, I don't know if I would say he was the reason we lost against the Chiefs. I think we were just like that was not a narrative structured game. That was just we are not playing well and you're playing very well. So that's what's going to happen. Um,
And yet, I feel like I do this every week with the Chiefs film review, but I do it in the opposite way, where I'm like, well, let's relax a little bit. Like This game wasn't a blowout through most of the game. Like going back and watching as much as I did, like we ended the third quarter and it was 16 to 10 Chiefs. Like it wasn't like that bad. Like true, the
Guess
Chiefs
so.
missed some
Yeah.
opportunities, but like there was some good run of play for the Steelers in the second and third quarter.
I guess that's right. I mean, we made it more interesting in the second quarter. There was a stretch in there where I thought like, yeah, this will be a game, and then it was fairly clearly not. By like late third quarter, we were not going to. I mean, okay, was it 16-10 at the end of the third quarter?
Yeah, like we scored right at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Okay, yeah, right.
But to me,
Yeah,
like the play that really ended the game was the Freiermuth fumble. Like that was, and that was early in the fourth quarter. Because otherwise, it was 22 to 10 because we didn't get the 2 point, which I had predicted the Chiefs would score 30. And
yeah.
if we had kicked an extra point instead of going for two, we would have scored 30. But that was the one time where I was like, Andy, why are you going for two? I know this makes sense, but I don't want it. But right after that, when it was 22-10, like I still felt like it was a game if the Steelers could move the ball, and Freiermuth's fumble was that was the death knell to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it did feel possible, but maybe I'm looking with with hindsight glasses or whatever. That's not a phrase. Whatever. I'm looking with the with hindsight bias now, and thinking that it was over earlier than it was. But I don't know.
I think one thing that is tough, like the Chiefs went down and scored two touchdowns. And even though like I didn't think the game was over, I was not worried for the rest of the game. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
true. Like emotionally, I was not concerned at all through the rest of that game. But it's not like it was in hand until the fourth quarter, I feel like.
yeah. Um, that's fair. But those quick early scores are probably what lets you breathe easier, or let me breathe easier too. Actually, just in a in a less hopeful manner, probably. Um, yeah. So the Chiefs now are resting starters for the playoffs, right? Because they have nothing to play for, which maybe means they will go 15-2, and I will be right in my record prediction.
Oh, nice.
It looks like probably. I mean, if I had to guess, so you predicted the Steelers would go
11
11
and
and 6.
6. Yeah.
It's maybe I don't know. What do we have to play for at this point? I mean, if the Ravens beat the Browns, they win the AFC North, regardless of what happens with us and the Bengals. I think so.
But I do think
Why?
in theory, if the Broncos or the Chargers win this week, well, the Chargers couldn't catch you, but because they would need they you have the tiebreaker. Oh, you have the tiebreaker over both, right?
Yeah, we
So
have the head to
then
head over both. Yeah,
yeah. So I because I think they're both 9 and 6 right now. So in that case, you might need that 11th game then to stay ahead of them and get the 5 seed. If either of them were to win next
yeah,
week, they
yeah.
could, get ahead of you if you lost to the Bengals.
So that would mean we'd be playing the. We could drop to play the Bills, I guess, in the first
Yeah.
round. Hey, that would be a lot like last year. That'd be fun.
Well, because the 5 seed, I feel like it's a good spot to play
Yeah,
Houston. I think that's going to be what everybody in the lower, the non-division winners are going to try to play Houston.
yeah. Yeah, I guess I guess we'll play so that we have a chance of playing Houston. I don't know. I mean, before when did this we clinched the playoffs the week we lost to the Eagles, and think I said then that we should consider just like resting until the playoffs at this point because you know how brutal that schedule is, and now I kind of wish we had just done that because what was the point of playing the starters the last 2 weeks? They're gonna look that bad. I mean, I guess it's you can use this as motivation, and hopefully we do, um,
Yeah, I
but
think you had
I don't know.
also said 10-3 might be the peak of this season. We might end up just going 10-7.
Yeah,
And I was thinking about that today earlier. I was like, oh yeah, you did say that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, this is my pessimism, but like it feels to me like we have now seen who the Steelers really are, and you could say no, actually we knew who they really were, and they've just had a tough, unlucky stretch here, which is maybe, but it's hard for me to buy that. I don't know. I don't know why exactly. Um,
I do think though with a 5 seed going into Houston is a clearly doable proposition.
Yeah.
And if you're the six and you go into Baltimore, I'm always, I know this last one didn't look great, but there's always that chance. I feel like Buffalo would be hard. I think that would be a tough one.
Yeah. And it would be sort of bad organizationally speaking too, because having lost to Buffalo in the first round last year, and then having a year that looked like there was more promise to it, uh, end with the same, it would probably be 10-7 at that point in Buffalo
Oh yeah,
again. It would feel like we're not making any progress. Um, so that would be like people, seats would get hot, right? I think I don't know that Tomlin's seat ever gets that hot, but it would be hotter than it has been, warmer
yeah,
than it has been. So I don't know.
yeah. I feel like getting a playoff win this year would alleviate so much of that. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what I mean. That's what our you know we need to at least win a playoff game. I think that's been like everyone's thought this year, but
and if you
I
get
don't know
that
how
four
much.
five,
Yeah, like would that be that great to win in Houston? Like, oh yeah, we beat a team that maybe shouldn't have been in the playoffs anyway. So, but
I'm just saying when we at the end of the 2015 season, the Chiefs went into Houston and beat Houston in the playoffs, and it's the first Chiefs playoff game I saw in my life because the last time they had won a playoff game, I was 4. So it didn't matter that it was Houston, and then we went and lost in New England the next week. But I'm just saying, sometimes wins in Houston in the playoffs can be very cathartic.
yeah, I mean, I've forgotten what they're like almost. They're so I would enjoy that. I think. Um, I was thinking I mean, when we get to the playoffs, we'll have to talk more about like the difference between regular season and playoff football. But I think there's differences that I never really appreciated before, and because like in the regular season, you're always evaluating like what does this mean about whether we can make the playoffs or win the Super Bowl. When
Yeah,
you're in the playoffs, you're not evaluating that anymore. You're in the playoffs. You're still doing some evaluation. What does this mean about whether we're going to win this game or can we win the Super Bowl? Those just it's like it's cool. Like the further you get in, the less epistemic evaluation you're doing. It's more
yeah,
just like all that matters is right in front of us,
right
essentially.
now, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
The
the
other
beauty of
kind
like
of
the final Super Bowl drive or something.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. In overtime,
Yeah,
Whew.
right.
Those moments are just there's nothing like it. Like you just feel like the entire like that is when like honestly the whole world just comes down to like this like tunnel, and you're just like this is
Yeah,
the only thing in the whole world that matters right now. Like
yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
yeah.
Uh, the other aspect of this being in the 4-5 is that I think that they always do a 4-5 matchup for the Monday night game. That's their goal, is what I read, because they want to make sure that it doesn't affect the home games for the divisional round. They want to know that by Sunday night. So they
Okay.
always leave the last game to be a 4-5. So it could be Houston hosting Pittsburgh as like the Monday night wild card weekend game, which could be fun.
Yeah. Uh, could be fun. It's like at a stage of the season where I'm not thinking it will be, but maybe. But I think we do have, well, we're in that time, but we have some interesting questions at this point. If the season ended today, like whether we want to extend Wilson or Fields or what we want to try to do at quarterback next year. I mean, they're going to be
Yeah.
interesting no matter what. But I thought for a little while there, it looked like okay, we'll probably, I think people were thinking like a 3-year extension for Wilson, and I think that you really got to think about that now because if this is like which Wilson is it? Is it this one or is it the one we had prior to these last 3 weeks? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate full circle irony for our podcast if like Denver Wilson just returns.
Yeah, yeah,
We were talking about this and then we were like, oh, we were wrong. And then it's like, oh, maybe not.
yeah. I mean, in some ways, maybe it's very similar. Like the numbers are still good overall. The touchdown interception ratio is still good. It's just like those crucial mistakes when he's pressing too hard. I don't know.
And they're just like,
Not,
I was trying to come up with a good term for it. I think I ended up in the film review just going with rookie mistakes, but there's just a juvenile quality, an inexperienced quality to these mistakes that you're just like, what are you doing? You know better than this.
yeah, or you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
All right. Well, maybe we'll take a break and then revisit some more topics about this game.
yeah, sounds good.
And we're back. Um, I noticed I always say after I say then and we're back, like very deliberately. And that's
Oh, really?
something that we'll have to see if I can take out of my my habits for the podcast going
Yeah,
forward.
I have some annoying like when I'm teaching and I make like I get through a little points there and it's like all packaged together and then I'm like, okay, so what am I about next? And I'm like, okay, good. I always say good and I feel like it's not good. I gotta stop saying good. Um, I did want to just comment on something that I was seeing was talked about a lot in this one, which is people still complaining about the game being rigged for the Chiefs. And I guess there's like one play in this that they were focusing on. It's like honestly, if there are more, then I don't remember them. But the play that Hollywood Brown had what was ruled a catch on the field, and then uh, replay made it look very questionable at best. It looked like it probably hit the ground. I mean, it did hit the ground, but it was. I mean, I guess you could argue that it was being controlled when it hit the ground, which is yeah. I don't know. It was not clearly complete. It looked like fairly clearly incomplete, but not definitively. And yet it was not overturned. Replay assist didn't catch it or anything, and the Chiefs ran to the line really quickly and ran a play, and they got like 4 yards on the play anyway. But I just wanted to put in my plug here as a Steelers fan who is not cheering for the Chiefs in this game. This did not strike me as remarkable or biased or anything, right? This is just like the kind of thing that often gets missed. And if you have a good team that's, well coached, they're going to know to get onto the ball, onto the next play very quickly in that kind of situation. And so they all were on the same page there. That's what a good team does. I don't think there's anything that, any legitimate complaint here. And that's all there
Yeah,
is to it.
I yeah, I feel like the reasoning why replay assist didn't intervene has got to be one of two things. One, that it was just so fast that the Chiefs got on the ball that they didn't have time to look at an angle that made them feel comfortable correcting it outright. Because replay assist is supposed to be like clear and obvious that they correct.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I mean, I guess along those lines is maybe they felt like this was getting into the debate about whether he was controlling it while he was touching the ground, which is honestly an aspect of the rule that I don't feel like I understand very well. I thought that it went from like it couldn't touch the ground at all to I thought I kind of had a beat on it for a little while when they started being like, okay, but if it touches the ground, it's not moving. And then there have been some calls where I'm like, maybe I don't understand this at all. So who knows?
Yeah. That I think that might have been why replay assist. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. It's either that they just didn't have time to get to it, or it was like that was my thought when they were showing the replays live. We got some of the replays like right before the Chiefs ran the next play, but it wasn't entirely obvious to me. Like, yes, it was hitting the ground, but was it controlled? Whatever the heck that means, it wasn't obvious to me. So,
Because
um,
if the replay assist is not replacing a challenge, right? Replay assist is like if there's stuff that's so obvious that we can see it on one or two replays and it's conclusive, we're just going to switch it so nobody has to challenge. But anything else, you got to challenge. Like that's the
yeah,
intent of replay
yeah,
assist.
right. Yeah, so nothing to complain about. There's a lot of like I think um, confirmation bias about oh the Chiefs are winning and now people are paying attention to calls that go in their favor. There's a lot of calls that don't go in their favor too. They had more penalties in this game than the Steelers did. At least they did for a while. I think they ended up
A
with more.
lot more, actually. I think we ended up with like 9 for 90 yards, and I think the Steelers had like 4 for 25 or something.
Yeah, yeah. It was not. Yeah, that's right. I remember it not being balanced early, and I guess it stayed that way. But yeah, the Chiefs get penalized too. They're just better.
I mean, we
Um,
we get dumb penalties that we all as Chiefs fans talk about, but that's not, the funniest thing for me about like the stuff from last year in particular was like two of the most talked about penalties last year were things that were called on the Chiefs. The Kadarius Toney
Yeah.
offsides, and then in that Sunday night game against Green Bay, when Marquez Valdez-Scantling had someone riding his back and they didn't throw the flag for for pass interference, like that was a talking point like the entire rest of the week. How the Chiefs, people were like, "Oh, the Chiefs lost the game." Like there have been very high-profile end-of-game situations where the Chiefs have not gotten calls too. It's just that people forget that when they decide on their narrative.
Yeah.
I'm going to take us on a tangent here
Okay.
because now I want to make it clear. I'm not talking about the people that legitimately think that there are conspiracies in the NFL. Like those people was set aside. Like I don't know that I can speak to their headspace. I'm talking about the like normal football fan that's just like this team that wins all the time gets so freaking lucky. It just seems like everything seems to work out for them. And you know what? Like every once in a while that call goes and they're not as good as you think they are. They just keep, and what I'm describing is myself during the Patriots dynasty. Is like, and I will say like that fan I understand and I have no problem with, except if they're a Patriots fan. Because if I honestly, I'm so disappointed in Patriots fans because you guys know what this is like. You guys did this. Like you've been there where everyone's questioning your credentials and you keep winning and you're the better team for a really long time. Like you know this. You guys are winners. You've been through this. Like if a Bills fan does it, I get it. If a Bengals fan does it, I get it. Like if you're like a 49ers fan from the 80s or a Steelers fan from the 70s or a Patriots fan from the 2000s, you shouldn't be part of this. Like, you know what it's like to be a winning team and have everybody like bitch and moan about you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I get so mad when Patriots fans are all like, oh God, everything works out for the Chiefs. Like, you know this isn't a real narrative. You lived it. Like, and Chiefs fans, I feel like, should be commiserating with Patriots fans. You know, I feel bad about some of the negativity that I had back during the Patriots dynasty because I'm like, okay, now I get it. Like, people just want to complain about you because you're winning all the time, but actually, it's not a coincidence when teams continue to win. Like, yeah, there are lucky instances, but at some point, like when you're winning Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls, like there's a pattern there. And so that is my soapbox that I'm very disappointed in Patriots fans that follow this narrative because they should know. Everybody else fine, but they should
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. It's a fair criticism. I honestly, it's the Patriots fans and really Patriots fans alone, right? Because I mean, maybe you have fans of like the Steelers from the '70s who are now complaining, but like this, how many of them are there? I mean, not that they're all dead now, but they probably just they don't remember those years that well anyway. Yeah, I don't. I think the Patriots fans, having just lived this and having been the bad guys for the rest of the NFL for 15 years or more, they should know what this is like, and they should be holding back. Maybe we don't have the relevant statistics. Maybe they are less frequent in their complaints than other fan
I
bases.
would hope so. I really would hope so.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. Um, I we did have a call reminiscent of the Tony call in this one. On Was it a touchdown or was it a big play down to?
Yeah,
I think
it
Pickens
was
had the
definitely a big
catch.
passing play.
Yeah, it was a Pickens. He broke a tackle and then ran down inside the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the five or something like that, and then it was Connor Hayward that was offsides, lined up offsides. Yeah, that was fun.
You know,
We- Pickens has had so many plays this year where something like that happened. It's like, I mean, maybe that's just like a function of the fact that like basically he is one of our only big play threats. But we've had a number of Pickens specific plays that just get called back for stupid things like that.
it's also funny because I would love to see. I had never ever seen an offensive offsides call before Kadarius Toney's, and since then I feel like I've seen like six or seven. Once of them was on the one, other one was on the sheet. It's almost like that was such a prominent call that they were kind of like, this is happening a lot. Maybe we should start calling this.
Or they're just like, that was an iffy time to call that. We should probably make it look like we call it more often. Well, that's the other read.
But I
But
would love to see some stats on like offensive offsides calls before and after the Kadarius Toney, like calls per game.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else? What else from this one? Should
The
we
only
should we
other
hit on here?
thing I thought that was notable was that this was apparently Russell Wilson's worst deep ball success rate. He get 1 out of 6 deep ball completions. That's his worst percentage of the year.
Hmm.
16.7% completion on deep balls. So it,
We had
whatever
another.
was happening okay for the Chiefs secondary.
Yeah. We did have another same foot twice play with Mike
Yeah.
Williams this time. It's an interesting theme for us this year. Um, with Pickens, I don't remember which game it was earlier in the year where that happened with Pickens in the back of the end zone. But
Was that the Giants game? It was the night game for sure.
yeah, I think maybe it was the Giants. It was a night game. Um, yeah, that's gotten some discussion too about whether the same foot twice should count. I do wonder in the rule book what it says, whether it says 2 feet, and even if it says 2 feet, like what 2 feet means, because this is like a classic problem in philosophy, right? If I have like it's easier to do on a board, but if like I suppose I draw a circle and then in that circle I draw like the number five and then the number five, and I ask how many numbers are in that circle. You might say one, just the number five, or you might say two. There are two instances of it. So you could have the same issue here, right? I mean, uh, does does whatever the rule book says, if it's 2 feet, what like is it clear that it's ruling out the same foot twice? Maybe it is, but um, anyway, uh,
I I have
weird
always
theme.
actually been a believer that 1 foot twice should count as 2 feet. I feel like if like a knee and a shin counts as 2 feet, like
Yeah,
basically if any part of your body hits the ground except your foot, it counts as 2 feet. And so I feel like 1 foot twice should also count as 2 feet.
I wonder if like is there any wrinkle with like the you can't tell whether it lifted all the way off, like whether like suppose it hits and then there's a like the cleat is still touching the grass or something like is that and then it goes down again. Do you? That's going to be not so fun to evaluate whether that was 1 foot twice or not. I think,
That's true.
but I think you could
But
have the
it's
same kind of thing with 2 feet, right? Like if
yeah,
that cleat is
your
touching
second foot,
the
yeah.
grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I just I don't know. And then you run into like so Xavier Worthy against the Texans caught a pass in the on the sideline in the end zone and he got his first foot down and he's trying to drag the second foot, but his second foot hit his first foot and because he like clipped his own heel, he wasn't able to get it down and he only got 1 foot in and I just felt so bad because I was like he literally did everything perfectly. It was perfect. It's just his foot happened to clip his other foot and he couldn't touch it to the ground. Like
Yeah.
it's a precise
Yeah.
thing you have to do as a receiver. I don't think we lay people appreciate how difficult that must be.
Yeah. I think yeah, that's right. Antonio Brown had that down to like a science at one point. Like he would just like get the 1 foot and then like I guess I mean, he had good core strength, right? But he would just like slam that other foot down, like it's like kick it down as he was falling. Where I think all of like, it's got to be your core that's doing that because all your momentum is taking that foot up at that point. So
Yeah.
he was, that was fun to watch. We haven't had Calvin Austin has actually made some good sideline catches the last 2 weeks, which I didn't expect from him, but that's
That
been
one
fun to see.
against the Ravens, I would have never like when that ball was thrown and I was like, you're throwing that ball to Austin? And I mean,
Yeah,
the way he like boxed out and managed to create space on the sideline, I did not realize he could do that. That was pretty impressive.
yeah,
He
yeah.
also absolutely roasted Nazi Johnson on a corner route in this game. Like, got him completely spun around. It was only like a 14 or 15-yard game, but he torched him.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's I don't know. He looked fairly good. I don't know that he's tall enough to be a consistent weapon like that. But he's good out of the slot, and we tried again on this one to hit him on a deep shot, but something happened on that play. Um, but anyway, yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys that people said had a good off season and looked really good in training camp. So um, I think that we see some of that paying off now. But yeah, anything else we should mention here?
I think that's about it for me. I think that I mean, just kind of looking forward with what do you think the Steelers should do with their quarterback situation now that we're kind of in purgatory? And for me, the hardest part is like, have we done a full Fields evaluation? Maybe Tomlin's comfortable that he has.
Yeah, I I mean, at this point, after this stretch of games we just had, it's like hard to be optimistic about re-signing Wilson and riding with him for 3 years, whatever that extension would probably be. He's 36 now. He's not getting more mobile. um, uh, I don't know. I might think like this. I might think we go. It's weird. Yeah, I mean, I was all on board with Wilson being our starter next year for a good chunk of the season here, and now I don't know. I think I don't know. Maybe you try to bring them both back and see if they both will come back, and then do this all again next year. Um, see what happens. But I, if I had to pick one, I think maybe at this point you pick Fields, right? Because there's just more upside there, and there's also like a lower floor. But if the floor with Wilson is 10-7 and losing in the wild card round, I'm fine with gambling on a higher ceiling with Fields and maybe getting a lower floor as well. But I don't know. I don't know what do
If
you think we
you,
should do at this point?
I, I, I don't know. I think it depends on the relative cost. Like, if you could get Wilson as cheaply as you got him this year, which is impossible, then
Yeah,
that would be nice. But I almost feel like Fields is an okay option, but you need something else then. I don't know that you can only go in with
yeah,
Fields. So
yeah.
then the question is what else? Like, the Steelers clearly aren't going to be in position to draft a quarterback. And
Yeah.
as far as people coming available, like maybe are the Vikings going to go with Sam Darnold, or are they going to hand it off to JJ McCarthy and let Darnold walk? Is he an
Do we
option?
want
I don't
Sam
know.
Darnold?
Do you
Yeah.
want Sam Darnold? Yeah, I mean I don't know. That's where these things become like what I feel like happens is that the Steelers re-sign Wilson just because I don't know
Mhm.
what else. You have to have an alternative, and I don't know what that would be. And I think the days of being like, yeah, we'll just go with Mason Rudolph, I feel like those are over in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so. I mean, nothing against Mason Rudolph. He was our best quarterback last year. So, but yeah, I feel like we should mention this because we're talking about. Well, we're not really talking about Kenny Pickett, but he's like adjacent to our discussion, and it would be pretty cool. It Hurts is just concussed, right? It's not like a long
Yeah,
term thing,
yeah, I
right?
don't think so.
It would be funny and all sorts of interesting if Kenny Pickett took the Eagles on like a Nick Foles like Super Bowl run here, wouldn't it? I mean, like that would just be it would give me a lot to process as a Steelers fan.
I
Uh,
mean, the entire city of Pittsburgh would have a lot to process.
yeah, yeah, that would be probably like the most interesting way this season could end. Um, I mean, we could add wrinkles in there, but that would be interesting. Very challenging.
Speaking of which, I had forgotten that Kenny Pickett was a Heisman finalist. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
realize he was like that productive and like I knew he was a good college
Well,
quarterback, but he was a Heisman
but
finalist.
there for like 3 years he was not a good college quarterback. He was like pretty bad. And then he had that one good year with like 40 touchdowns or 42 touchdowns or something. And then we drafted him and he was pretty bad again. Um, but
Although I'm guessing you feel pretty good about not going with Malik Willis because it was the two of them that were the. I mean, not that it worked out either way. I guess it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. But
Yeah. The rest of the league was right that that was a bad year to draft a quarterback. uh, we were not. Um, yeah. Well, I kind of hope it happens. I hope Pickett goes on. I hope Pickett wins the Super Bowl somehow. Um, but yeah. Well, we'll try to, I guess, meet again next week and do some more around the league discussion, right?
yeah,
See
more
what
of
the
a
storylines
recap.
are heading into the final week.
Yeah, and get an idea. Well, by then we'll know whether the Steelers are going to play their starters, and we'll be thinking playoff seeding. So that will be we can kind of combine thoughts about getting into the playoffs too.
Yeah,
And we need to
good.
pick a week. Maybe it'll be after the Super Bowl, but we need to pick a week where we just recap our preseason predictions and
Oh yeah,
go over just like all that we thought.
yeah. I think I think all of those are ones I gotta go check actually, but I think at least most of them are ones that'll be like clear whether they happen or not after the Super Bowl. There might have been one or two that were like this is the last season for blah blah blah, and in that case, we won't necessarily know right after the Super Bowl. But yeah, we need to go evaluate how bad we were or good we were.
But some of those have already happened, like me saying Daniel Jones won't start for the Giants next year.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
done.
That's true. And we also know. Well, this wasn't on one of those locks, but Pat Fryermuth will not be a first team All Pro, so I will not be smashing my face in the cake. And Aaron Rodgers will not be winning a playoff game, and it will not be against the Chiefs. So you will not be
Oh,
eating the
that's good.
spiciest pepper in the world.
Yeah,
That's good.
thank goodness. And the Vikings will not win fewer than 7.5 games. So that was long gone. That's probably one of the worst predictions of the year made by anybody, honestly.
Well,
The Vikings go under 7.5
we'll see. I
wins.
predicted Caleb Williams as rookie of the year, so that's not happening. Um, all right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you're not a Steelers fan. I hope you're a Chiefs fan, because then you're happier right now. um, and if you're a Steelers fan, I'm sorry. What can I say?
But maybe
But
there'll be
yeah,
a playoff win this year.
yeah, there'll at least be a playoff game.
All right. Well, thanks all of you that follow along. I will not have the Chiefs Steelers game film review done tonight, but it'll probably be done tomorrow night, which means it'll probably go up on YouTube Saturday morning. I may have like a clip of it available tonight, but probably not. So just letting you guys know, the podcast is probably all that's coming tonight.
All right.
um, Otherwise, just please continue following along. We really appreciate the engagement. You can see if you can make comment of the week next week, either here on YouTube, on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at STCF715. Or if you really want to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, you can do that too. Maybe we'll read
Oh
that
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Some of it.
And if you add something about gauntlets, we'll increase our gauntlet knowledge. I think that will probably be in the next podcast. Let's just leave
We
it
might be like the foremost gauntlet podcast if this continues, just mentioning gauntlets every week.
Yeah,
We're at now
that's
3 episodes in a row, so
good. Yeah, that's more gauntlets than you would expect.
let's see where it goes. Uh, until next time.